Morning, welcome to another video. Today we are over here at AP Workshops with Griff. Griff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Griff. I run a motorcycle shop called AP Workshops in Tamworth in Staffordshire. We are Aprilia specialists. So the boys have come over and brought their bikes over today for me to have a look over and hopefully give them a little bit of help.
So I bought my 2003 Tuono. It's a Gen 1. It's already done a season on track, but I'm just going to get Griff to check it all over, make sure that we're all good and that everything's going to be ready for another season.
I'm Owen, and I've brought my 1999 RSV Millie, which I bought as a cheap track bike project. Putting some bits on it and making it a nice bike, hopefully. Go and do some track days for these boys this year.
And shit.
And shit. We're gonna be shitting on
Yeah,
it.
and shit. Yeah,
Did I say
let's do some track days and shit. That's great.
Did I say track days and shit?
Yeah, track days and shit. No, leave it in. That's great.
Yeah, it's great. Lovely. Right, do well.
Track days
You
and shit.
don't even notice you're saying it, do you? That's right, me and Owen took the trip from sunny Suffolk over to Staffordshire to see Griff at AP Workshops. Now, if you're in the Aprilia scene and you haven't heard of Griff, then I don't know what rock you've been living under, because Griff is the man when it comes to these bikes. We started off with my Tuono and got it on the bench. Let's see what he thinks. Alright, so we've got my Tuono on the bench now. Griff's just going to cast his eye over it and, like I say, just make sure that it's all ready for a season of track riding. I've got a couple of questions. So the rear shock, we did mention last time this came to you. I don't know whether it's quite right. It feels a little bit soft. We did play with it a little bit and it feels all right while I'm actually riding, but I'm still not convinced it's 100%.
Okay, so first things first then. Now this is really, really good because suspension is something that some people think is a dark art. It's not a dark art. Suspension is all about simple physics, okay? And anybody that says it's a dark art and stuff like that and trying to sell you something. It's not, it's all about simple physics. So the most important thing when it comes to suspension is trying to translate what is actually going on the bike when you're riding it to what you're feeling to actually what's going on the bike. So describe to me when you said feels a little bit soft. Describe to me what you feel by that. Is it sliding, is it drifting, or is it wallowing? When it comes to suspension, it's really, really difficult to sort of disappear with your own backside by trying to describe things. Mm-hmm. So keep it simple. It's usually a case, if I can speak to you about things like suspension, it's usually a case of hard, soft, or don't know. If it's hard, it's kind of difficult to translate sometimes. If it's soft, you'll find it's pretty much easier to describe. If you don't know, then it's probably too hard. And there's a method to using your suspension and getting your suspension to sort of work where you need to, or sort of in the ballpark, if you like. Mm-hmm. So, and then what we'll do, we'll spanner check the bike. There's a couple of bits and pieces of like little tricks of the trade that I can give you, which will help you. I was just talking to Owen about it actually. Just help you keep the bike and keep your head clear when you're riding this bike. So to start the ball rolling then, tell me what is going on with the suspension. So hypothetically speaking, because we don't really want to do this, but hypothetically speaking, cut the bike in half, tell me what's going on. Yeah, see what I mean by hypothetically speaking, Gaia. So literally, hypothetically speaking, talk to me about the back half. Is it hard, soft, don't know? And then we'll talk about the front end, hard, soft, don't know. Describe what's going on, mate. Try and keep it nice and simple, like I said, but describe to me what's going on. Let's have a look. We'll have a bounce on the bike. We can see what's happening, and then we can sort of perhaps work from there.
So a bit of an issue is this is how it's felt since I've had it. So I've never really had anything to compare it to. I can't say, it feels worse than before or stiffer or softer or whatever, but it is a little bit wallowy coming out of corners under throttle. It feels a little bit sort of wavy. I don't know whether under braking it would affect anything, but it is quite skippy on the back end. Now I know, of course,
first.
Yeah. So
then I'll explain to you why. No problem.
Okay, but so it's just like I say, a little bit wallowy on throttle coming out of the corner, and other than that, it does feel all right. But like I say, I haven't really got anything to compare it to because this is how it's always felt.
Really, really obvious problem. And what you've done is hit 3 markers straight away, which is absolutely brilliant because that starts right the way from the start. Mm-hmm. So you said it feels squashy, wallowy, and it's on the way out of corners.
Yes.
So if you imagine the dynamics of riding your bike through a corner, on the way into a corner, okay, you're going to put most of your mass through the front end. So all of the energy that's going to be pushed in through this bike, or around all of the moments of force and all these other big words that people use that just confuse the life out of me because I'm thick, basically, kind of just sort of all on the front end, okay? Then when you come out, if you imagine, you start to apply power, the whole bike shifts.
It's the weight transfer.
The weight transfer.
Yeah.
That's it. But look at you. It's like he almost knows
See,
what he's on about.
almost,
there.
yeah.
You should be teaching me a few
I've heard it
things
before.
here.
I've heard
You've
someone
it.
else say it once.
We've been watching TV, haven't
That's
we?
it.
That's it. We've been watching them. So the weight transfer on the way out, the weight transfer comes on and it starts to feel squashy and wallowy. Okay? That means that the back end is soft because you can feel it. Now here's the trick, and here's a little bit of a thing. If it's too hard, it's really, really difficult to feel something unless you know what you're looking for.
Okay.
You don't know what you're looking for because you've got nothing to compare it
Yes.
to. Make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I often confuse it for like tyre pressures and stuff like that as well, that I try and adjust and I can't quite work out whether it's there or whether it is in the shock itself.
Makes complete sense. You're absolutely correct. No problems whatsoever. But if it's on the way out, you can feel it starting to wallow or feel like it's sort of in a circular motion, that kind of thing on the way out. The back end is too soft. Because, like I said, on the way out the corner, if you imagine from the apex, you're rolling the throttle on, the weight transfer will come. If you haven't got enough damping, then basically the spring becomes uncontrolled and the spring will wallow. Does that make sense?
Yes.
The whole point of damping is to control the spring. A spring will have a natural tendency to oscillate. Oscillate is probably the only big word I'm going to use in this whole sentence, okay? So a spring will have because that's how springs work. It's a springy material. That's how, if you imagine, a slinky works. Here's a great example of that. If you imagine you see a car driving down the road and you see one of the wheels just bouncing on the road, okay? The spring's in place, but the dampers aren't because the spring will wallow, okay? So if you feel it's probably not that bad because what you'll find is on a motorcycle you haven't got four wheels. So on your way out, if it feels like it's wallowing, then if it feels like it squats, then it's a compression damping problem. If it's wallowing, you need to add a little bit more rebound damping.
Okay.
Just to control that spring. So you're absolutely right. So fair play to you. Not going to take it away from you. You earned that little bit of a gold star there. Literally, it is. If it's wallowing, it means the spring is uncontrolled on the way out. Okay. You need just a touch more damping. Now, on the underside of this, there's a little black knurled plastic knob which we can just turn. If we add a couple of clicks to that, then effectively what you're going to be doing is closing off a valve inside the shock absorber, which is going to control the rate in which fluid will move between two different chambers. That's not the reality of it, but it's a nice, easy analogy to use to make people understand what's going on. So effectively, if we add rebound damping on the bottom, which is just underneath here, we might get a little bit of a picture of that in a second so we can see what's going on. But insert here. So if you, sorry, there's a little bit more editing for you to do.
Yeah, thanks for that.
So on the underside, we'll actually add a couple of clicks of damping. And in an ideal world, we'd get you on the bike and we'd send you out and check it.
Yes.
Because in an ideal world, any adjustments that we'd make to suspension, we need to prove to make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But because you've described it and you've explained it really, really well, I know exactly what your problem is. No problems, because it's pretty straightforward. You've described that really, really well. Perfect. That's it. So we'll do that now.
All right, lovely.
So yeah, it looks like this rebound just up here. I don't know if we can see this. It looks like that is it's actually seized on this bike. So that shock absorber before we start the season is going to need to come out and going to come out and be dealt with because that's seized solid. So it's quite a common thing on road bikes where basically the underside of it under here, all of these kind of bearings and suspension rear linkages, that kind of stuff get a little bit locked up and a little bit seized because they get neglected. It's kind of a little bit out of the way. They're not kind of thing that you see every day of the week. So we'll have to whip that shock out and get that dealt with, no problems. But dead straightforward, shouldn't be too difficult. An ABBA stand will do that. ABBA stands are absolutely excellent. They kind of change the way we do business in this workshop, no problems. But that part there, that's what we're talking about. If you have a quick look, and if you can see it from there, I think Jamie might have took some pictures of it. Stuff, but if you have a quick look at that part there is where we are. That's where we're looking for. That if we give it a couple of clicks of that, add a little bit of rebound damping on it, that'll do the job nicely.
So we've just spoken about the rebound adjustment. I have heard a lot of horror stories as well about the dog bone linkages on this.
Yep.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
So the dog bone linkage, literally, it sounds like it sounds ridiculous, but the shape of the suspension linkage on the underside effectively is shaped like a dog's bone, literally, sort of like two sort of round bits on the end and a bit connecting them together. This is the part that dictates the shape and the sort of characteristics of the suspension. But also, there are bearings either side of this particular dog bone inside. Those bearings need to be kept and maintained, but because they're kind of exposed to the traffic, they're exposed to sort of like the sort of the mess, the dirt, and like I said a little bit earlier on, they're kind of exposed underneath, and they're difficult to get to. So yeah, what can happen is on these they can break. They can break if you neglect them. So it's always worth, on any motorcycle, it doesn't matter whether it's an Aprilia or not. In fact, I've heard quite a lot of examples of Suzuki's and Kawasaki's of these suspension linkages breaking.
Okay.
They need to come out. They need to be maintained. It's quite straightforward. Like I said, we use ABBA stands in this workshop. They plug into the actual suspension, swing arm, pivot. You lift the back wheel up, you isolate the back wheel, strip the suspension, clean it. It's the most important thing. Yeah. Keep it clean. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't expect your teeth to behave themselves, do you, if you don't clean them?
No, quite.
So yeah, your suspension linkage will do exactly the same kind of stuff. Whip them out, clean the bearings, wash them, grease them, repack them, build it back up, and it will absolutely look after you.
Okay, so what are the symptoms to look out for then if we think that that might be something that's happening?
There's no symptoms.
There's no way of knowing, it's just one of them things.
Stop being an absolute pain. Stop neglecting them. Yeah. The service schedules on them. Get in there and do it.
All right.
Right, so what we're going to do now is basically, Jamie's asked me to have a quick look around the bike, give him a bit of a heads up on what's going on, prep for the season. There's a couple of bits and pieces that I've learnt over the years. I was taught by he was an old boy who built race bikes in the 60s, British bikes basically, that used to shake themselves to bits constantly. So there's a few odds and sods which you can do to this bike, which those skills can transfer across. Nut and bolt checks. If you're riding a race bike, and this you can use for road bikes as well, but if you're building a race bike, use these methods to build this bike, because if you do, and all will become obvious when I explain it, if you do, then what you'll find is that you haven't got to worry about what's going to fall off your bike. You haven't got to worry about your bike. So there's a prep routine that you can go through, or a pre-ride routine that you can go through, which will give you the confidence to be able to shut that part of the bike off. The fastest way to get around a track is to go from apex to apex as efficiently as possible, right? So if you're thinking about how to set up your footrests, or are my calipers going to fall off, or are my wheels in line, or is my chain okay, that kind of stuff when you're riding around, or what am I going to have for dinner, or whatever it turns out to be, you're not concentrating on what you're doing, and you're not going to be as efficient on the track. Your mind's elsewhere, and it's dangerous, let's face it. So what we're going to do is give you a couple of little methods that we're going to use on these bikes, a couple of little things that we've got on these bikes that we can do just to show you, which will set your peace of mind, no problems. So what we'll do is start off at the back wheel. I'll go and grab some tools, start off at the back wheel, and we'll go around and we'll sort of work at the back wheel, work at the front wheel, and we'll work from there.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, let me go and grab some tools.
Lovely.
Right, so what we're going to do is, there's a couple of little sort of what we call spanner checks. There's spanner checks and prep. So I'm going to show you now how I go about doing this, what I use, the tools I use, just especially just in this particular area here so we can see what's going on. So on these particular bikes here, we have sometimes a problem where we find that these sprocket nuts come loose. So what I'd like to do, when I was to carry on with my previous bit of the conversation, we grab a 17mm spanner, we check and make sure they're tight. Now these I know are 50 Newton meters. We have got a torque wrench here, but I know they've been done because I've done them, so that's no problem whatsoever. You don't have to have a fancy torque wrench like this. I know this is a snap-on one, but if you go to somewhere like Halford's or so like a tool store or something along those lines, a torque wrench is absolutely critical and should be the most sort of used, if you like, and I'm not going to mince my words, it has to be the most used tool in your toolbox. So we grab hold of a spanner, basically check all of these nuts just to make sure they're tight, like that. We know they're all tight because, like I said, I've done them before, but this is just for sort of demonstration purposes. And then what I'm going to do is grab a hold of a paint pen. This paint pen, literally, normally what you would be doing is filling in the sort of tyres, the sort of pictures on the tyres, or like the writing on the tyres to make it look pretty. But I think those days in the 80s and 90s are well and truly gone now, unfortunately, and I do remember those days. So what we're going to do is use this pen to make torque markers. So we're going to use something on the outside of the nut and something on the nut, so we can see effectively if the nut is moving. So we're going to put all of these on. I'll tell you what, let's see if we can get the camera a little bit closer so you can see what's happening. Okay, like that.
Can you colour in the scratch on my swing arm?
Yeah,
there as well,
yeah, there you go. There's a line there. Look, it's starting to work now. There you go, and a line. So effectively, if the nut starts to come loose, you can see that the nut's starting to come loose, no problems. This will give you not only a bit of an indication that you've actually been there and done and checked that nut so you know what's going on. What you can do is when you're riding or before you're riding, before you go out for your ride, you can have a quick look around your bike. Like I said, this works for road bikes or track bikes. You can check your markers, check your torque markers and see if they've moved. That way, you know they're safe, and when you're on the bike riding, you don't have to think about it. Nice and straightforward, really, really easy way of being able to sort of shut that particular side of things out, because we've all heard horror stories of bits and pieces of nuts and bolts coming loose. If you've got those torque markers in place, I think it's wheel nut trucks, wheel nuts on trucks. You can see they have these sort of luminous markers, that pointers that work together. If you have got something very, very similar, probably a little bit more discreet, using a £1 type end that we got from a well-known auction site, that it will give you the confidence to be able to understand, yes, my bike's in good condition, yes, my bike has been checked, yes, that nut is tight, so yes, I don't have to worry about it. We'll just pop around the other side, have a quick look at the calipers and nuts and bolts on the other side, and we'll take it from there. And we're back in the room. This is take 2. Okay, so basically, like I said, we're back around this side. We're going to do the brake caliper. We're going to use the torque wrench. We've torqued that back up again, no problems. Like I said, I've got a fancy one. You don't have to have a fancy one. You can go to Halfords. I've said it before. Any good torque store, get yourself something. Just make sure it's in good order, no problems. So we'll go down to that particular caliper bolt there, tighten that up, pop this caliper and pop this out, pop the actual nut out. If you mark it out like that, where you can see it, if that starts to move or comes loose, you can see that it's coming loose. Just before you get on your bike, you can check it, so you know everything's going to be okay. If it is starting to move, you can tighten it up. Before you get on the ride, if those lines are marked up, you know it's tight, you've got no problems. You can get on your bike and not worry about it. Like I said to you, when you're riding a bike, the most efficient way to get around a track, to go from, even to go for a road ride, is to go from corner to corner, from apex to apex, the most efficient manner possible. If you're thinking about something else, then your mind's not on the game. That's when it starts to get dangerous. If you've already checked it, those lines are marked up, you know you're going to be safe. Right then, so the next thing I want to go and check out when I've got that, we know basically we've done torque checks. So all the nuts and bolts on this bike, we've gone through it from top to bottom. We know everything's tight. Everything that we can see, everything that's critical is basically been checked. We've got those torque markers on it, so like I said, and I'll keep rattling on about it because it's quite important and it does often get overlooked. The fact that we know now that every nut and bolt on that bike that is critical has been tightened, no problems. Now we're going to start having a look at the brakes. So brakes, basically, aside from the engine and the rider, is probably going to be one of the hardest things that are going to be worked on this particular bike. The problem I see that a lot of the time is that brakes, because they're heated up and cooled down a lot, brake fluid is hygroscopic, it draws moisture in from out the air, it does deteriorate quite quickly. I would recommend that on any track bike, that brake fluid is changed very, very regularly, much more regular than you would imagine. We're going to go through his brake pads, make sure the brake pads are okay. We're going to check and make sure that the pins, the caliper pins in there have got their particular clips in the place. Make sure we've got pad material. One thing that we did find out when we were racing last time that we were out, that even though there was probably sort of pad material on the disc pads, the heat transference from the discs through to the actual calipers, through the calipers to the fluids can create a sort of brake fade, even if it looks like you've got good brake pad material in there. So we're going to check at that. If there's any doubt in it, in fact, when it comes to brakes, if there's any doubt, there's no doubt, change it, no problems. A little clip on the back of the pin.
Little C-clip.
Yeah.
Yep.
Important to make sure that that's in place, because obviously that's the pin retaining clip. So these calipers, just make sure that that little clip there is in place. It's quite critical that that's in place. I've never seen one come out, if I'm completely honest with you, but I still wouldn't want to risk it. So that little clip there, we're checking to make sure the pad material's in place. We can change the brake fluid depending on how long it's been since we've actually ridden it. No dramas. We know everything's tight. Discs are clear and clean. Pad material's all good. We're good with brakes.
Okay, so we spoke a little bit last time when I was around. Before you tuned it up, I had a bit of an issue where sometimes when I start it, for a little while, just for maybe 10 seconds, it will do an occasional almost misfire and a bit of a clunk. And we thought that we'd iron that out when you tuned it all up. But I wonder, again, me not knowing anything, I've heard sprag clutch issues before. I don't know whether that could have anything to do with it, but maybe if that's something we can have a look at since we're going to fire it up for the first time.
Possibly. Let's have a look. So sprag clutches. A sprag clutch, if I can briefly explain what a sprag clutch is, this will kind of make sense to the people that are watching. So a sprag clutch effectively is a starter clutch. It's these one, what's called, well basically, the starter motor isn't directly connected to the engine. So there has to be a way of being able to connect the starter motor to the engine when you push the start button to start it. So with that in mind, what we've got to do is find a way to be able to connect that starter motor, and then when the engine started, disconnect it.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
So it's not running constantly, and you're not going to burn out the starter motor. So effectively, that starter clutch is on the other side of the engine. The symptoms are, when we hear this or when we see this, what's going on, the symptoms are you push the button and you'll hear a loud cracking sound from behind the flywheel. So on the left-hand side of the engine, you have a flywheel, you have your starter assembly, you have your starter clutch assembly, okay, and then you'll have your starter motor attached to it. So effectively, the whole engine is started by a gear behind the flywheel.
Yeah, okay.
So that'll be on the other side of the engine. So what we'll do, we'll turn the engine on, make sure the battery's charged up, because effectively that can create a problem.
Yep.
We'll find out. We'll give that a listen, find out what's going on there, and have a listen to see what's going on. No probs.
Okay, great.
Okay, keys on, ignition in. If there is going to be a problem anywhere, it's going to be behind here, because this is the flywheel. So let's have a quick listen to what's going on. Little bit of fast idle. Let's see what's happening. Nah, that's perfect.
See, occasionally it does get a clunk, clunk as it's going.
Keep that battery charged.
Yeah.
The reason that
And
little noise.
and it does that while it's running sometimes.
It can't do that while it's running, because when the engine's running, the starter clutch is disengaged.
Okay, then there's something else it's
There's
doing while
something
it's
a
running.
little bit strange.
Yeah.
And it's very, very easy for you to kind of mistake those noises, clanks or bumps or bangs or stuff like that, with something else.
Because I think you did hear it when we did the tune-up when I came around last year. I think when we started up then, it was doing that, and you said it sounded a lot more like a misfire on one cylinder every now and then when it was cold, when it was first starting up, than it was a sprag clutch. But it's just strange that, like I say, it was that noise that it does as it's running.
That little
sometimes.
click then that you
That's
heard when it turned off.
Yeah.
Literally, like I said, because the engine's slowing down, then the starter clutch can pre-engage again, so we know what's going on. So let's do a heat cycle on it and have a quick listen. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, let's go. So a properly charged battery, so we can see what's going on. So look, trying to talk to the microphone. So a properly charged battery will absolutely help stop that kind of thing in the first place. Because if you've not got a fully charged battery, sometimes these are big, bloody great big 97mm pistons. That can really cause a problem. So let's have a listen. The engine still sounds pretty well balanced. Stands pretty nice, there's no rumbles, no bangs, clanks, anything along those lines as it's going around. What we'll do, because this engine is a dry sump setup, I think we were talking about it the last time, but because this engine's a dry sump setup, then what you'll find is that you check the oil level while the engine's hot at the tank.
Yeah.
It's a very, very easy thing to miss, because fellas like, even myself, and I'm old, but even like fellas like ourselves, we've grown up with a pretty strict diet of Japanese bikes, which tend to run wet sump setups. Yeah. So you would check that when it's cold, but on these, the straw down at the bottom down there, you would check this when it's hot. So we get it up, We run the bike through 2 heat cycles, which means the fans come on and off twice.
Yep.
And then we'll check the oil level just to make sure everything's okay. Now I know that you're pretty hot when it comes to your maintenance on that stuff, so there shouldn't be any problems with that. But we'll have a quick look. But look, what I'm saying here at this point in time is there was a little noise from that spread clutch.
Yes.
At this point in time, it didn't give you any problems when it started up there and then.
Yep.
Keep that battery topped up properly. Keep the bike running. In fact, the more you use the bike, the better it's going to be.
I mean, I hope my wife's here and that.
Yeah,
I've got to ride it.
sorry, wife. I'm so sorry. Look, the more he uses the bike, the better it's going to be because the less money it will cost him. With that in mind, spray clutch is not a cheap job to do. It's not the end of the world, but literally, with the spray clutch, once you keep that battery topped up, keep that battery on, keep that bike running, keep those temperatures up, keep those oil changes going, straightforward maintenance that you should be doing. That will not give you a problem with that, no problem. You'll be fine, but let's let it do a heat cycle and see what's going on.
So I was also wondering, while we've got it running, I mentioned to you over the phone, it sounds a little bit noisy, the clutch itself sounds a little bit noisy. Does that sound normal to you? I know they can be a little bit rattly anyway, can't they, on these?
Look, the way to tell if there's a problem on it is when you pull the clutch lever in, does that noise change?
It goes away, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's have a listen to that then, no problems. While it's running.
Yeah. That feels shit as well.
Yeah, that needs a bleed.
Yeah. Is that just a bleed? Because that first bit has got nothing, and it's always been like that, no matter how many times I've bled it.
Did you bleed it from here?
No.
Right. So what Jamie was saying is basically you can hear that the actual clutch noise changes. Now I don't know if you can hear this or pick this up on the microphones, but I can absolutely hear what he's saying. This noise, this amount of noise that we've got when you pull the clutch in, because you're disengaging the clutch when you've actually started it, because you're transmating and you're disengaging the crankshaft from the gearbox, the clutch back is actually unloading.
Yeah. So
what you find is that it's changing its state. There's nothing wrong with that noise there.
Good.
Rotax engines tend to be a little bit noisy.
Yes.
Okay. They're not Japanese engines. They do have different characteristics. That noise there, in my experience, you haven't got any problems.
Okay.
You haven't got any problems at all. One thing that you did mention just earlier on was, this is another thing, is that the clutch lever is a little bit spongy. So if you want to come over here
around
slightly,
here,
have a quick look over here. So if you can see the clutch lever, it's a little bit spongy the first third of the actual stroke here. Now Jamie says he's absolutely checked this and bled it no end of times and it makes no difference. But what he hasn't done is bled here. Now this banjo bolt here can hold an embolism here. That characteristic can be that it absolutely feels soft in the first third. Because this is the highest point of the master cylinder, the embolism or the air embolism will get held in this particular part just at the end of this banjo. What you'll find is that, yes, you can compress air. So what you'll find is that if we bleed that from there, I'm pretty sure that that will go.
Okay.
Now on a lot of bikes, a lot of the new ones, you'll find that they've got like a bleed nipple here.
Yeah.
So you can bleed it.
Yeah.
Because that's what
That's
it is.
for that same
If
reason.
you imagine you've got your master cylinder. Normally on this it would be on a Tuono.
Yes.
So the master cylinder would be
Sitting a lot
straight.
flatter. Yeah.
But because it's here, let's see if we can try bleeding that a little bit here. And let's see if we can get rid of that, and I'm sure that may help that. If not, then it's just a bit of a worn master cylinder. Okay. You'll have to work around it or replace it, no problem. But it's pretty straightforward.
Perfect.
It's not causing you any dramas really, so you know what, we can fix that, no problems. Okay, that's it. That's it. Spread clutch behaved itself, no problems. We're up to temperature. It's all come down. So it's done the 2 heat cycles. Fans on, fans off. We're going to check, because it's a dry sump setup, we're going to check the oil level. That's it, about halfway. Absolutely perfect on one of these, no problems whatsoever. So listen, I'm going to give that a clean bill of health, mate, no problems whatsoever. When you're riding throughout the year, just change your oil and filter regular. No problems, that bike sounds great.
So, one thing that is mandatory when you come to AP, as I've always heard, is you've got to bring the Jaffa cake. So there you go, Griff.
Thank you very much.
We made sure we sorted that out.
We are getting middle-aged in this building now, and these are getting very, very difficult to start justifying. But thank you very, very much. We will sort them out. Thank you very much. Confection used to be currency.
Okay, so another, I would say good thing, bad thing, is Griff sells all some lovely bits as well. So I bought off Griff a little while ago a new end can because I've still got the standard one on this bike and they weigh an absolute ton, as well as being a little bit restrictive. So we're going to get Griff just to get this fitted, fit the EPROM, get it tuned up, and hopefully that's going to be lovely. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about the actual exhaust itself?
So the exhaust itself is our design that we developed on the dyno. It's made from stainless steel with a 60mm link can on it. When you buy that, you get the correct EPROM that comes for that pipe. Dependent on your setup, but that's all done. That comes with it. We'll unpack it, have a quick look, and then what we'll do, we'll fit it to the bike. We'll show you doing a little bit of a tune-up because once you've actually fitted it to the bike, because you've changed the exhaust dynamics, the shape and size of the exhaust, then it needs a little bit of a tune-up just to make sure that you compensate for those kind of things. But best power, shape, size for these particular bikes, these are the ones that I absolutely recommend on these ones. In here, look. I didn't even know these were in here. Heavy weight of that.
Have you got a set of scales here?
Yeah.
Have you?
Absolutely. Let's go and do that, shall we? .6. It is a bit. Two.
Christ. So just under 4 kilos of difference. That's insane.
So look, that is the EPROM. Now an EPROM is effectively a chip. The chip holds the injection and ignition mapping for this particular engine with those modifications. Now you've got an adjusted collector on yours, which is why we'd suggest you run the FR200. So we're going to just basically lift the lid off and lift the lid off. The RP58 is the standard exhaust for the Tuono. So we're going to just lever that out.
So what we were just saying off camera is that chip is basically just a base map that will suit the exhaust, and then it's still worth bringing it into you and getting it tuned up just so that everything's sort of perfectly evened out.
Yeah, that will all become apparent in a little bit. We're going to do that afterwards. So we're going to replace the RP58. If you have a quick look, there's a little notch on the end of the EPROM that matches the notch on what they call the EPROM bed there, and that goes together. Okay, now we've done that, now we've got the EPROM fitted, we've got the exhaust fitted, what we're going to do is a tune-up. So effectively, we're balancing the throttle bodies. Now an engine is only ever as good as its worst cylinder, so we've got the ability on this particular engine management system to be able to adjust the CO levels to be able to make sure that the engine is balanced correctly. So when Jamie's bought this bike, basically probably hadn't been touched for a little while, but now we've changed the exhaust dynamics, we've changed the injection and the ignition maps. We're now going to balance the engine to make sure that all of those modifications it's made are correct. If you imagine this was probably developed in the, I don't know, mid-90s, early 2000s.
Early injection.
You've got, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So you've got, effectively, you've got a like a little trim screw that you would adjust. So those little potentiometers that you adjust will like adjust fueling between sort of minus 10%, plus 10%. And what you're looking to try and do is get the CO levels at around 3.5% per cylinder.
Okay.
But because we know yours is okay,
Yeah.
it just went really, really quickly. So effectively all we've done is just basically made sure that what's going on and the adjustments that have been made because of the change in the shape and size of the exhaust, that we've just compensated for that. Dead easy.
Lovely. So as a whole then,
The bike is
obviously,
mint.
yeah, we've said about the rear shock that needs a bit of attention, but other than that, it's happy for a,
Mate,
hopefully a year riding.
put a fresh set of boots on it,
Yeah.
change your brake fluids, that kind of stuff. Literally just regular maintenance stuff.
Stuff yeah.
Go and ride your bike and have a great time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Cool, man.
So that was it for my Tuono. Griff had given me a few things to do in the coming weeks before track season starts, but overall it was looking in great shape and nearly ready to smash around the track once again. Now it's time to get Owens Millie in and see whether the same thing can be said for his bike.
Alright guys, so this is my track days and shit bike. 1999.
Track days and shit.
Track days
Track
and
days and
shit.
shit bike. Yeah, we're loving that.
99 RSV Millie. So it was a road bike. These bikes suffer with the fuel tank drains failing, they perished. And unfortunately when the guy was out on track, they split and fuel leaked onto the exhaust and it went up in flames and down he went. So it's had a bit of a low side on this right hand side here. Bit of superficial damage, we'll call it. But some minor repairs, and hopefully this will be a nice, cheap track bike to serve us for the rest of the year and beyond. So, yeah, just going to run through it now with Griff and see what else it needs.
From what I can see on this bike already so far, this looks really, really good. When you kind of come in, I was expecting some kind of a horror story, but to be honest with you, this is not a horror story. I've seen a lot worse than this still on the road. Still on the road, this is really good. But what I think we'll do, like I said, I think we've already started it, but we had to stop for the camera again. But if you want to, like I said, we'll come around here. I'll start again, and I'll start again on this first things we can see so far. We'll just run round it, and what I'll try and do is give you a little bit of an update on what we're seeing as we're going through it, just to make sure that you can see what's going on. We've already done track prep. Now, with respect, it's a bit like teaching me granny to suck eggs, teaching you to do that, isn't it? Because you actually know what you're talking about. But there is some specifics on this bike which we should be able to give you a bit of an idea about with what's going on. And I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you said you was talking about sort of the suspension being a little bit too hard on the front. So I can probably see why there's a bit of a thing on the front end of that, to be honest with you, because that front end set up quite stiff. Now you're 81 kilos because we put you on some scales. That front end there, if it's got bigger springs in it with that kind of suspension settings on it, is too hard. That's even racetrack too hard. So I can see what's going on there. So looks like somebody's been guessing with spring rates and things like that as it sits on that side of things, or the previous owner was a hell of a lot heavier than you are. But I can see that so far. But look, no stress. We'll start at the back, work the way forward. We'll have a look round, see what's going on, no problems, and we'll work it from there. No dramas. Right, first things first that I can see so far. You're running, God, don't get me wrong, I love Pirelli Supercorsas. They are absolutely amazing car tyres. But this is an SC1, which I think may well be probably a little bit too soft. I'd always recommend an SC2 for the front, SC1 on the an SC2 on the rear, SC1 on the front of this one. This is also a 180/60, so that aspect ratio, or in other words, the height of the tyre is a 180/60. The 180/60s, you will struggle to get tyre warmer clearance here. Now, I've noticed that the hugger's missing, which is not a bad thing, because are you going to ride in the rain?
You never know, do you?
No,
you never
absolutely
know.
I do, because I'm not going to do it. That's it. I'd rather sit there and just suck tea, no problems. We can sit there and suck tea all day long. I'm not going out in the rain. I've got a choice these days, that's it. But look, the distance between the sort of the inside of the swinging arm and the tyre around the top there is going to be a little bit too tight on that 180/60. You can bring it back by putting another link in the chain, but I think you kind of really limit your sprocket choices. Your sprocket choices if you run a 180/60. I would solid recommend a 180/55 on one of these. It gives you flexibility more than anything else. So we've already spoken about the fact that your local track is Snet. Now Snet is got a mile long straight on it, hasn't it, or something? If I remember rightly, it's about just over a 2 minute lap, isn't it, or something along those lines?
2:15, 2:20, yeah.
Something like that, yeah, sure. So with that in mind, go for a 180/55. Make the tyre just not quite so tall. Give yourself some space here. It gives you flexibility in your gearing without having to change the chain too many times. Chains are 100 quid a time. That's a pain in the ass, I'm sorry. I don't care who you are, you know what I mean? Listen, if you're loaded, no problems. But you wouldn't be riding this if you was loaded, would you? So like in this instance, I would say, go for a 180/55. Give yourself flexibility in your gearing. You could go up a couple of sizes maybe on the back, something along those lines if you wanted to, with a 110 link chain on it. That would give you gearing for, say, something like Alton Park, Donington. Mallory, you could probably go down to a 15 on the front and still keep that chain length and still keep the flexibility in it without having to change a million chains. But it just gives you that clearance there because, like I said, that looks like a 42. It looks like you're running 1642, which is pretty much, from what I can gather, well, it is standard gearing on one of these, no problems. But like I said, you are going to struggle to get tyre warmers on there. So change that to a 180/55. That's really cool. It's already running lightweight sprockets. That's the kind of thing, no problems. I can see from this side that you've already got an Oberon slave cylinder on, so that does make your life a little bit easier. Now, the guys at Oberon are really, really good. They did actually ask us to do a little bit of testing for them just to get some proof about how light that clutch lever can be. So it doesn't help you get into neutral or anything along those lines, but what it will do is make that clutch lever between 20 to 30% lighter. So when we were doing the testing on, say, like, you know, doing the little marks and stuff like that, it's another thing you haven't got to consider, because if your hand starts to hurt or you get arm pump after a few laps, it's something that's going to take away your concentration. Those are a really, really good investment, really good idea, no problems whatsoever. I'm absolutely with you all the way on that one. Let's have a quick look around just to see what's going on as well. There's something else that I've just noticed that I'd like to sort of draw your attention to. Now, with these bikes, certainly with RSVs, there's two different types of oil filter caps. So with any race bike, oil and filter changes it's regular health checks. If you imagine, it's like doing, on an athlete, it's like doing regular blood tests to make sure that their sort of blood levels are okay. So changing oils and filters regular on a race bike is like making sure that the engines are in spec. Here, you've got what's called the extended oil filter cap, because there's two different types. So if you wanted to buy oils and filters, that kind of thing, to make sure that you're doing regular oil filters, and you wanted to buy them online, or you wanted to buy them from somebody who didn't know, they will probably send you the standard type. Not their fault. Not their fault at all, but basically there is two different types. You have the extended type. The story behind it is long-winded and boring, and I won't really go into it on film because literally at this point in time we've got other things to look at. But literally that's the extended type. So if you ever needed anything, it's a slightly different part number. If you ask for whoever wants it, who's selling it to you, just say, I need the extended type. They should know what they're on about, so you'll be all right on that one. It looks to me like the linkage, the suspension linkage is gleaming underneath. If you can have a look under there, have a quick look for the camera under there. If you look at it, it looks absolutely gleaming. But with this in mind, it looks gleaming on the outside. Is it clean on the inside? Like I said, I can't teach you to suck eggs, can I? Because you know what you're talking about. You know exactly what you're on about. One thing here that I'd like to just bring to your attention as well is that literally there's this sensor here. Now this sensor here is an air temp sensor. Okay, so this air temp sensor here needs to be here, okay, which means this wiring here has been routed incorrectly, so that needs to go underneath the frame and comes out through here and be routed through here, or at least it's got to be routed somewhere directly in the wind, somewhere like that, somewhere out that way kind of thing. Now if you have a look at what type of what type of fairings you put on, then that normally would be, like I said, in the wing, because that's an air temp sensor. That would normally sit in the air tube. So you'd have an air tube through here. There'd be a grill here, and that would screw into a little hole on the grill. So that's got to be in the air. So if you put that there, that's going to fluff up the fueling slightly. So that needs to be in the way over there. So that needs to be out there. Make sure that's okay. That's something worth considering, okay? When it comes to race bikes, again, I don't know if I'm going to be teaching my granny to suck eggs on this one a little bit, but literally get these if you can, get them inboard. If you get them inside there, then effectively what will happen is if you do drop, they're protected because they're inboard. Get them inboard if you can, while you've got the opportunity and while you're halfway through the build like this. All you need to do is just extend that slightly, extend that hose slightly, mount them off here, and then just sort of bring them inboard just to keep them a little bit safer. That's really, really cool. Now, one thing I can see, like I said, that we were talking about earlier on when we were walking around, I think you did say that these have got slightly heavier springs in it. Now, that kind of thing here, that kind of suspension, preload on this spring here is quite a lot for a heavier spring for somebody who's 81 kilos. Like I said, we've stood you on the scales. You're tall, but you're not heavy, which means you're perfect. So let's be honest with you. Yeah. So look, if this has got heavier springs on it, now normally there'd be a 9.5 Newton meter spring. This particular, like I said, and that I wouldn't be too worried about if it was a 9.5 spring. But if you said it's had heavier springs in it and it's got down at that, that's really, really heavy. So in a little bit when we've gone around the bike, the other side, had a quick look. We'll certainly have a quick look at, see how that feels. Fortunately, because of the nerdiness that the level of nerdiness that I've attained with these particular forks, I can probably feel what's going on, to be honest with you. So I can see what's happening, and I'll be able to have a quick bounce on that and perhaps maybe put you back in the ballpark before you go out and track, just to give you sort of a bit of a base setting to work from. But again, the same principles that we were talking about with Jamie's bike, no problems, no drama. Start soft, work the damping in, give yourself feel. Hard bikes, really, really hard suspension on bikes, it's difficult to feel what's going on with the suspension. Softer bikes give you a little bit more feel. Have you done many track days?
About the same as Jamie. We've done, 5 or 6 track days, yeah.
So you're not a complete novice, which is absolutely fantastic. With that in mind, I would say at this point, like I said, because it's also the start of the season, which is important, we're all coming back to it. So you lose your touch, because unless you keep your hand in, you lose your touch. You've got to keep practicing. That's why you see basically lads, full-time racers, they're already out in Spain. They're still out. They've been out twice already, testing still, and just making sure that they're keeping their hand in. If you have a look, there's a couple of guys on YouTube. I think Lee Johnston's one of them. Fantastic blogger, man. He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. If you have a quick look at him, you think he's already been out twice, and I think they're already building their bikes again now for first testing, which I think sometime next month, maybe, something like that, before it all gets started. So they've already been out twice just to keep their hand in. I've not been out in a long, long time, so I'm going to be, both of us.
Both guilty.
So I think we're going to be wobbling around a little bit, the pair of us, which is really, really cool. But start soft, work the damping in, that's about we'll do it. Like I said, I think that might be a little bit too soft, but we'll have a look in a minute, no problems whatsoever. So let's have a quick look around the other side and see what's going on.
Got a question about this.
Right, that is non-standard.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So have a look. Like I can see exactly what's going on here. No problems. These are really good. These clip-ons are really adjustable. That's obviously a non-standard Nissan master cylinder. So I think that might be something off of something like a GSXR or a Fireblade or something along those lines. That's kind of standard stuff. Really good radial style, which it wouldn't have come with. It'll come with what's known as an axial mount before. But really, really good. You can't, I think it's possible to overbrake one, but you just got to be a little bit more careful. I think I have heard of people going over the bars because they've overbraked it, but it does, I think, possibly that looks like something it might be off a GSXR at some point in time. But another thing as well, like I said, while you're there, mount that inboard here. So you'd have two reservoirs here just to give yourself that little bit of protection if you're going to build something along those lines, all right? Just helps with sort of longevity and the sort of, if you do ever just get into a bump and into a crash, that'd be really, really helpful for you. You've got the same brakes on this as Jamie's got on his, so we're going to deal with it in exactly the same way if we go around it with a torque wrench, no problems. Don't forget to put your markings in, no problems. That's pretty straightforward. This here, on this side here is effectively, that's your regulator rectifier. Again, just for the ease of getting this seat unit on and off. I noticed Jamie's done his, but mount that inboard if you can. just because you have to really stretch to get it off. And it's a pain in the backside. And look, race fairings in the best of times are a pain in the backside. So I'd certainly make sure that you get that done. Make sure you get that dealt with. This wiring here looks like it's non-standard as well for some reason, but I don't know. You've still got things connected. But look, them exhausts are really expensive, but they have been damaged in the past. And you have got a modified collector on your bike as well. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Have you got the EPROM to compensate for that?
Don't believe I do.
Okay. So there's a couple of things we can have a look at. We got to tune your bike up as well, yeah?
Yeah, why not?
Are you going to change your exhaust?
I think I'm hoping to get those nice and straight again, sorted, and hopefully run those. I mean, they're beautiful. But
They are gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're just gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah.
To the eye, they're the best type they are. So as far as I'm concerned, and if you have a look at it, they're a genuine article. So when those exhausts were new in 1999, they were the ones that were gleaming. So if you imagine you walk into a dealership and you walk into the glass cabinet, like you would do in a BMW dealership, and they'd be gleaming at you. So the salesman would sell you a bike, and then he'd go, right then, sir, and follow me to the cabinet, and he'd shimmy over to the cabinet or slither over to the cabinet, because that's tend to be what kind of some salesmen do. Just slither over to the cabinet and look at these, and you buy these. These are very, very cool, very, very rare, extremely and exceedingly expensive. So look, gorgeous to look at, absolutely gorgeous. But like I said, I will give you a contact so you can get those sorted. That can be fixed, no problems whatsoever. But if you're planning on keeping them, let's take the ECU apart. Let's make sure the EPROM's the right one. Let's see what's going on with that one. And then if you're going to keep those on, we can take those out, tune your bike as well to make sure that that's okay. It's probably not necessary for us to go and do spanner checks because, like I said, it's probably teaching me granny to suck eggs on that one, knowing what you do for a living. So with that in mind, the bits that I can do here, because I've got the gear to do it, then we'll show you how to do that. We'll have a quick look at that and get that done for you, no probs.
Mega.
Okay, so what we'll do then is just whip the seat off. Let's pull the ECU out. Let's have a quick look at the EPROM in the ECU, see what we've got, see where we're working with that one. Because like I said, you have got a modified collector on this one. See what we got, and then we can work from there. Okay, let's have a quick look. Absolutely, yeah, that's the wrong EPROM. So that's basically, we know it's an aftermarket EPROM, but those EPROMs there, unfortunately, are untrustworthy. The reason being is because 99, 2000 had a different engine to 2001 to 2003. So that EPROM there isn't trustworthy in one instance, and two, you've got the modified collector on. So I would suggest at this particular point in time we go and get ourselves an FR200, which is it is the EPROM that has been designed and developed with that modified collector in mind. So shall we have a look and see what we can do?
Go for it.
Okay, let's see what she does. Let's see if she'll light up, see what we got. Perfect. Okay, she lights up a treat, mate. That runs good. So let's get this set up. We've got a little bit of setting up to do with like aligning throttle position sensors and things like that, just to make sure that works. So we'll go through those little procedures then, just make sure that's okay. Yep, that's perfect. So there's a couple of, you've got an onboard diagnostic system. That should read 0 at tick over, which it is, no problems. That's perfect. So we know that's working. Okay, let's get this tank. We'll lift the front of the tank up, so we'll have a quick look at this. Do a little dance. Make a little love. Okay. So there's a thing. There's a thing. I notice you're missing grips. You can't put regular grips on your bike, okay? No, that has not been set up properly. So that's 1, 2, 1.5. This has not been set up properly, not by a long way. Okay, perfect. Let's try from there. Now, because of these ridges here on this grip, if you change this grip for a standard rental grip or something along those lines, it will basically feel all lumpy and bumpy and you won't get it on. If you shave them off, what you'll find is that it makes the throttle tube weak. So, a standard set of grips for one of these bikes gives you the throttle tube and the grips, and they're about 12 quid. Don't mess about, buy genuine. You'll thank me for it, I promise you. Okay?
Okay.
Right, let's get this hooked up to this meter then. Okay, so basically we've just finished off a little bit of the worm. We've just seen we've just done the tune-up while the camera was off. It's starting to get a little bit late, so we had to just push on a little bit, but we sorted out the side stand switch. Put the bike into gear, the engine cut out, so we've put a little bypass into the side stand switch so we know what's going on. We've had a look at the front brakes. We know that that master cylinder is probably dead, so we're going to chuck that in the bin. Recommend getting like a really good, like I said, an OE set of grips. There's nothing, mate, it's super fresh. It's like putting a fresh pair of pants on. It's amazing. You know what I mean? Absolutely can't beat it. Totally brilliant. So we did the tune-up. That tuned up absolutely beautifully, didn't it? So we're really happy with that one. What else did we do? Check the charging rate. Charging's fine, no problems. The mechanical side of things, we had to take the front wheel out and drill out a bung because that needed dealing with. But like I said, it was just a case of, right, we've got to hustle a little bit now. That's all done. What else was there? It's just been a last bit of a blur, hasn't it? For crying out loud. Yeah, that was mad, that was. But brilliant. Completely brilliant. This bike just runs, listen, mate, this bike runs wicked. If you paid next to nothing for this, you're laughing. You're laughing. All I'm going to say is we're laughing, and I believe you're booked into a track day the same as mine, aren't you?
Certainly am.
Yes, we're going to ride then. That's it. Cool. No problems. Listen, man, you've bought a winner. That's it. Happy days.
Mega. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, mate.
No worries, man. No worries whatsoever.
Right, all good? Really?
Yeah.
Know what we're saying, roughly?
No.
Neither do I.
No.
Right.
Because we're just going to make it up, and he's going to leave this little bit in. We're just going to make it up. This is the outro. This is the outro.
Right, thank you very much, Griff, for looking at our bikes. I'm glad you didn't find anything majorly wrong with either of them.
There's nothing wrong with those bikes. They're badass. Don't worry about it. You're cool.
I'm well chuffed with the work that you've done, and obviously really excited to get it on track at Castle Combe with you in April, hopefully. So
hopefully I'm on the reserve lift. I've got to speak to my mate Rob the Pirate, who is going to get me sorted out. Yeah. So
obviously you had a good look at Owen's bike as well.
Yeah. No, massive thanks to Griff. He's sorted it out. I'm feeling a lot more confident. You know, going to send that straight down the track.
They're both badass, man. They're both going to be good. No problem. Nothing to worry about. Just remember, like I said, prep. That's all it is. That final prep, that nut and bolt check right at the end. That's what settles your mind. No worries, you'll be fine.
We've both got a few final bits to do to each of our bikes, and then hopefully they should be good to go come April. So super. Thank you very much for having us, Griff, and for all your work as always.
Wicked. No problem.
And we'll see you in the next one.